My parents told me they'd boycott my wedding unless I invited my sister, the one who slept with my fiancé. So, I gave them a choice they never expected. Growing up, my sister Olivia and I were incredibly close. We shared a room in our tiny house and talked about absolutely everything under the sun. Olivia was the outgoing one, always into art, music, and anything else that captured her interest. As for me, I was the quiet, bookish type, always with my nose buried in a novel or working on some creative project. Despite our differences, we had each other's backs. That's just how it was. Our parents, John, 55, and Mary, 53, drilled into us the importance of family. Family first, always, they'd say. For a long time, I believed in the idea of blood being thicker than water, that family was the most important thing in life. But that only works if everyone's playing by the same rules, right? I met Ryan, 30, during my second year of college. He was a senior, and we hit it off right away. He had this quiet confidence about him, and we connected over our shared love of books. We could spend hours chatting about our favorite authors, the classics, and even the quirkiest quotes we'd find in old novels. It didn't take long for me to fall head over heels for him. Ryan was smart, funny, and made me feel like I was the only person in the room whenever we were together. After I graduated, Ryan and I moved in together. We found this small apartment near the city, and I honestly thought things were perfect. We started talking about our future, marriage, kids, all of it. Meanwhile, Olivia was doing her own thing. She didn't go to college, which was a big disappointment to our parents, but she was working hard to support herself while pursuing her art career. She was always bouncing between jobs, struggling to make ends meet, but I admired her determination. I thought, she'll figure it out. I never once thought there was any tension between her and Ryan. In fact, they got along really well, which I was happy about. They shared a lot of interests: music, art, all the creative things I never really got into. It seemed great that my sister and my boyfriend could hang out and chat about things they both loved. Little did I know I was blind to what was really going on behind the scenes. The day I found out, everything felt normal. I'd been working on a huge presentation for my marketing job, something I'd been stressing over for weeks. I was running late that morning and realized I'd forgotten my flash drive at home with all my files. I panicked for a second, then remembered Olivia was staying with us for the week. So I called her up. "Can you do me a huge favor?" I asked, trying not to sound as frantic as I felt. "I left my flash drive at home. Could you send me the files? It's really important." Olivia was totally chill about it. "Yeah, no problem," she replied. "I'll email them to you in a few minutes." Crisis averted, or so I thought. Later, I got a notification on my phone. Olivia had sent the files, but when I opened the email, something else caught my eye. It wasn't the files I was expecting right away. Instead, the subject line just said, "Sent St. Ryan." And the email contained a half-written draft she must have forgotten to delete. My heart started pounding, but I tried to stay calm. I told myself I was probably overreacting, that it was nothing. But then, curiosity got the best of me. I scrolled down, and what I saw made the ground feel like it was crumbling beneath me. There were texts, dozens of them, between Olivia and Ryan. And they weren't just friendly exchanges. They were intimate, flirtatious, filled with detailed descriptions of meetups and inside jokes that only lovers would share. And then, I saw it. The message that hit hardest. "I can't wait to see you again tomorrow, Olivia. Last night was amazing." Last night, the night I was working late on my presentation, thinking my boyfriend was home watching TV, and my sister was out with friends. Turns out they'd been together doing God knows what behind my back. My stomach turned. I could barely breathe. I felt like I was going to be sick right at my desk. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the messages, reading far more than I should have. I think part of me was hoping to find something, anything that would prove this wasn't as bad as it seemed, but it was all there in black and white. They'd been sleeping together for months, 6 months to be exact, 6 months of lies. I don't even remember how I got home that day. Everything after that was a blur. When I walked into our apartment, Ryan was sitting on the couch, looking like he had no care in the world. It made my blood boil. I didn't waste any time. I didn't even try to stay calm. I just threw my phone at him, literally, and demanded an explanation. He looked confused at first, like he had no idea what I was talking about. Then he picked up the phone, saw the messages, and his face went pale. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered. "Oh, here we go," I thought, the classic line. "Really? Because it looks like you've been sleeping with my sister for 6 months. I snapped. Ryan tried to come up with excuses, saying it was a mistake, that it wasn't serious. But the more he spoke, the angrier I became. Each word felt like another layer of betrayal. Eventually, he stopped trying to lie. He sat there, head down, admitting everything I'd read was true. He said it started innocent enough. Late night talks when I was asleep, their shared love of art and music, that turned into something more. I didn't care anymore. I was done. Get out, I said, my voice shaking. I don't want to see you again. Ryan didn't argue. He grabbed his stuff and left. Just like that, the life I thought I was building with him came crashing down. But the worst part? It wasn't even Ryan, it was Olivia, my own sister. After Ryan left, I sat there, trying to process everything, but I couldn't. Not until I confronted Olivia. I had to hear it from her. I had to know why she'd done this to me. I drove to her place, my hands trembling the entire way. When she opened the door, she looked like she already knew. She didn't try to lie like Ryan had. She just stood there, guilty as hell, and said the words that broke me completely. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it to happen, but I love him. I couldn't believe it. My own sister. I couldn't even find the words to respond. All I could do was turn around and walk out, tears streaming down my face as I realized that the two people I trusted most had completely shattered my world. That was the day I lost them both. I don't think I've ever felt as numb as I did driving away from Olivia's apartment. There were so many emotions swirling inside of me. Anger, betrayal, sadness. But all I felt was empty. It was like I was just floating through everything, watching my life fall apart in slow motion, powerless to do anything about it. I ended up parking in some random lot and just sat there for a while, trying to make sense of it all. How could they do this? How could Olivia do this? She was my sister, the one person I trusted more than anyone, and Ryan, well, I thought he was my future. It felt like my entire life had been a lie, and I was the last one to find out. Eventually, I dragged myself back to the apartment I used to share with Ryan. When I walked in, everything felt wrong. It was like the place wasn't even mine anymore. I looked around at all the things we'd bought together, the couch we used to binge-watch shows on, the pictures we hung on the walls, and it hit me. None of it mattered anymore. Everything was tainted, and I didn't even know where to begin, but I knew one thing. I couldn't stay there. I didn't want to be in the same place where all of this had happened. I grabbed a duffel bag and started tossing in clothes, my laptop, and anything I thought I'd need for the next few days. I couldn't bring myself to pack up everything. It felt too final, like I'd be admitting that my life with Ryan was completely over. While I was packing, Ryan came back. I heard the door open, and I froze for a second. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to hear his excuses. But there he was, standing in the doorway, looking like he'd been run over by a truck. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him everything I felt, but I was too exhausted, too drained to be that angry anymore. Please just listen, he said, his voice shaky. Can we talk? I didn't respond. I just kept packing my back to him, but he didn't take the hint. He stepped closer, standing in the middle of the room like he didn't know what to do with himself. I made a mistake, he said, and my blood started to boil. A mistake? Seriously? Was that how he was going to spin this? Like it was just some little mistake that we could brush off? I dropped the bag on the floor and turned to face him. A mistake, I said, disbelief in my voice. You slept with my sister for 6 months, Ryan. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Over and over again. He looked down at his feet, like a scolded child. I know, he mumbled. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just happened. I wanted to laugh, but it wasn't funny. It just happened? I repeated, shaking my head. That's what people say when they spill a drink or miss a bus. Not when they betray the person they claim to love by sleeping with their sister. What do you want me to say? I asked, my voice trembling with frustration. What could you possibly say that would make this better? Ryan opened his mouth, then shut it again like he didn't have an answer, and he didn't. Nothing he said could undo what he had done. Nothing could fix it. I'm sorry, he whispered. I roll my eyes. Sorry? That's it. He looked desperate now, like he was reaching for something, anything, to make it right. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just confused. Olivia and I connected over stuff, and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. I'm sorry I messed up. Messed up? I snapped, my voice rising. You didn't just mess up, Ryan. You broke my trust. You broke me. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of him. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing how much he'd hurt me. Ryan stepped closer, reaching out like he was going to touch me, but I backed away, holding up my hand. Don't, I said, my voice cracking. Just don't. He stopped, his arm falling to his side, and we stood there in silence, staring at each other. It felt like an eternity. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I just wanted him gone. "You need to leave," I finally said. "Can we at least talk about this?" he asked, his voice pleading. Say you don't want to lose me." I couldn't help but laugh, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind you make when everything is so messed up, it doesn't feel real anymore. "You lost me the moment you decided to sleep with my sister," I said, wiping my eyes. "There's nothing left to talk about, we're done." Ryan stood there, looking like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just nodded, his shoulders slumped, and turned to leave. When the door clicked shut behind him, I felt this strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because he was finally gone, and sadness because this was the end of everything we'd built together. I sat down on the bed, staring at the half-packed bag on the floor. My mind was racing, but I felt this eerie numbness, like my brain was trying to protect me from feeling too much at once. I knew I had to move forward, to figure out what came next, but right then, all I could do was stay stuck in that moment, trying to process everything. I texted my friend Chloe, asking if I could crash at her place for a while. I couldn't stay here, not after everything that had happened. I needed to get out. I needed space to clear my head and figure out my next move. Chloe didn't ask questions. She just said, "Of course, come over whenever you're ready." I stuffed the rest of my clothes into the duffel bag, grabbed my essentials, and left the apartment without even bothering to look back. I didn't know when I'd come back to get the rest of my stuff, but I was certain of one thing. I couldn't stay there another second. That place wasn't my home anymore. It hadn't been since the moment I found out what Ryan and Olivia had done. As I drove to Chloe's, the images kept replaying in my head. The emails, the lies, the look on Ryan's face when I confronted him, Olivia's hollow apology. It felt like I couldn't escape it, no matter how hard I tried. By the time I reached Chloe's, I was completely drained. She gave me a hug when I walked in, told me I could stay as long as I needed, and didn't press me for details. I was grateful for that. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet, not really. That night, as I lay on her couch, staring at the ceiling, I tried to focus on anything other than the pain that was threatening to swallow me whole, but it was impossible. The betrayal, the heartbreak, it was all too fresh, too raw. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring or how I was going to move forward from this. All I knew was that I had to keep going, even if it felt like I was falling apart. What else could I do? I stayed at Chloe's for the next few days, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life now. It's crazy how your whole world can just collapse in an instant, and you're left to pick up the pieces, not even sure where to start. I didn't want to face my family, especially not my parents. I knew I'd have to tell them eventually, but I wasn't ready for their reaction. I just needed time to process everything without dealing with the extra drama that would come with it. But, of course, life doesn't give you that time. After a few days of silence, my phone started blowing up, missed calls, texts, voicemails from my mom and dad. I knew what they wanted. They wanted to know why I hadn't been answering, why I hadn't been home, why I wasn't picking up. They probably knew something was wrong, but they had no clue just how bad things had gotten. Finally, I caved and called my mom back. The second she answered, I could tell she'd been worried sick. Her voice had that frantic, "What's going on?" tone, and I could practically hear her pacing around the house. "Where have you been? We've been trying to reach you for days. Why haven't you called back? Are you okay?" She fired off, barely giving me time to respond. I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice steady. "Oh, Mom, I'm fine. I've just been dealing with some stuff." "Point choice stuff?" she asked, sounding confused. There was no easy way to say it, so I just blurted it out. Ryan and Olivia were having an affair. Silence. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. For a few seconds, I didn't hear anything on the other end of the line. I almost thought the call had dropped, but then my mom spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What?" I repeated myself, feeling the sting of the words as I said them. Olivia and Ryan, they were hooking up behind my back for 6 months. I could hear my mom's sharp intake of breath. "Are you sure?" she asked, like she couldn't believe what I was telling her, like somehow I'd gotten it all wrong. "Yeah, I'm sure," I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "I saw the emails, Mom. I confronted them both." They admitted it. More silence. I could feel her trying to process what I'd just told her. Who wouldn't be? This wasn't some small thing. This was the ultimate betrayal, and I knew it would hit her hard. And then, finally, I don't know what to say," she whispered. "How could this happen? Olivia, your own sister?" "Yeah, I know," I said, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "Believe me, I'm just as shocked as you are. At that point, I could hear my dad in the background, asking what was going on. Mom must have put me on speakerphone because the next thing I knew, Dad's voice boomed through the phone. "What's all this about?" he demanded. I sighed, knowing I'd have to explain the whole thing again. So I did. I laid it all out. How I found the emails, how Ryan and Olivia had been sneaking around behind my back, how I confronted them both and kicked Ryan out. By the time I was done talking, I was emotionally drained all over again. Like I'd just ripped open a wound that hadn't even begun to heal. Dad stayed quiet for a long time after I finished. I could almost picture him sitting there, jaw clenched, his hands gripping the armrest of his chair. He wasn't the type to explode right away, but when he got mad, you knew it, and this was definitely something that would make him mad. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, controlled. "That son of a," he muttered, each word slow and deliberate. "And your sister? How could she do this to you?" "I don't know, Dad," I said, my voice breaking. "I just don't know." For a moment, I thought they'd be as furious as I was, that they'd be on my side, comforting me, maybe even cutting Olivia off like I had. But then Mom spoke up, and everything took a turn I didn't see coming. "But maybe you should talk to her," she said softly. "See if you can work this out." I froze. "What?" I asked, almost not believing my ears. "I mean, she's your sister," Mom continued, her tone tentative, like she was tiptoeing around the conversation. "I'm not excusing what she did. What she and Ryan did was awful, but maybe you two can find a way to fix things. Family's important, you know that." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had just told them how Olivia had stabbed me in the back in the worst way possible, and their first instinct was to get me to forgive her? To fix things? "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice rising. "She slept with my boyfriend, Mom. She betrayed me." "I'm not saying you have to forgive her right away," Mom said, clearly uncomfortable. "But she's your sister. You two have been close your whole lives. I hate to see this tear us apart. It wasn't like we had a simple fight. This wasn't something that could just be patched up with a few apologies and a family dinner. Olivia had destroyed our relationship. There was no coming back from that, at least not anytime soon." "Todd, I don't think you understand how badly she hurt me," I said, my voice shaking. "And she's not my sister anymore, not after this." Dad finally chimed in again, his voice still calm but firm. "Look, I get that you're angry, and you have every right to be," he said, "but what your mom's trying to say is, don't make decisions you can't take back. Olivia's family, you might hate her right now, but at the end of the day, she's still your sister. Maybe one day, you'll be able to find some sort of peace with this." I felt like I was going crazy. Here I was, hurting more than I ever had in my life, and they were worried about keeping the family together? Where was the outrage? Where was the support? I needed them to be on my side, to see how broken I was, but all I was getting was, "She's still your sister, and family is everything." I'd had enough. "I can't do this right now," I said, my voice tight. "I need some space. I'll talk to you guys later." I hung up before they could say anything else. I was shaking, trying to hold back the tears. I couldn't believe it. My own parents, were more concerned about me forgiving Olivia than they were about what she'd done to me. It felt like they were choosing her, like they were telling me my feelings didn't matter. And that hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. After that call, I knew things were going to be different. It wasn't just Olivia and Ryan who'd betrayed me. In a way, my parents had too. They weren't on my side. They were just trying to keep the peace. And I wasn't interested in peace right now. I was interested in surviving and figuring out how to get through this without falling apart completely. I didn't know what the next steps were, but one thing was clear. I was on my own. After that conversation with my parents, I felt more alone than ever. I thought I could at least count on them to understand how broken I was, but they just didn't get it. It was like they were so focused on keeping the family together that they couldn't see how much I needed them to support me, not Olivia. I stayed with Chloe for a while longer, trying to get my head on straight. I had no idea how to even begin putting my life back together. The person I thought I was going to marry had betrayed me. My sister, the person I trusted the most, had betrayed me. But of course, my parents had a completely different view. They'd started making little comments here and there like, "Have you thought about inviting Olivia?" Or, "It would be nice to have the whole family together." At first, I ignored it. I figured they'd eventually get the hint and drop it. But they didn't. In fact, it seemed like the closer we got to the wedding, the more they pushed. One afternoon, my mom and dad came over to help finalize some wedding details, or at least that's what I thought. We sat down with a guest list, and my mom had this weird look on her face the whole time. I could tell something was coming, but I wasn't ready for what she said next. So, we've been thinking, she started, her voice too casual for how she was fidgeting with the paper in her hands, and we really think it would be a mistake not to invite Olivia to the wedding. I froze. I'd been waiting for this conversation, but I still wasn't ready for it. Mom, I said, trying to stay calm, we've talked about this. Olivia isn't invited. I'm not comfortable with her being there, I added, and just as I expected, my dad chimed in. She's your sister, he said, his voice firm, like he was trying to reason with me. Don't you think you two can at least try to work things out? It's your wedding. It should be a time for family to come together. I took a deep breath, already feeling the tension rise in my chest. Dad, this is my wedding. I don't want to spend the whole day feeling uncomfortable because she's there. It's supposed to be a happy day for me and Ethan, not a reunion where I'm forced to forgive her just because it's family. But they didn't stop there. My mom leaned forward, her tone turning soft, almost pleading. And sweetie, Olivia's been struggling, she said. She regrets what happened, and this could be a chance to start fresh. We just don't want this rift to last forever. I could feel my patience slipping. This isn't about starting fresh, I said, my voice hard. She slept with my boyfriend. It's not something I can just get over because it's convenient for the wedding. I'm not ready to forgive her, and I don't know if I ever will be. That's when things escalated. My dad sighed, crossing his arms. We're not saying you have to forgive her right away, but not inviting her to the wedding? Do you really want to make things worse? We're your parents, and we're telling you this is a mistake. I could feel my anger building. They weren't listening. It was like they cared more about keeping up appearances and having Olivia there than they did about how I felt. I don't care if it makes things worse, I snapped. This is about me and Ethan, not Olivia. She lost the right to be part of my life when she did what she did. Then my mom hit me with the line that really set me off. If Olivia isn't invited, we might have to reconsider attending the wedding ourselves. I stared at them, completely speechless. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own parents were basically giving me an ultimatum: invite Olivia, or they wouldn't come to my wedding. The worst part? They said it so calmly, like it was some reasonable request, like they were helping me by threatening to not come. You can't be serious, I said, my voice barely holding it together. Oh, and you're really telling me that you won't come to your own daughter's wedding because I won't invite the sister who betrayed me? My dad didn't even blink. We're not saying we don't want to be there, he said, still calm, but family is important. Olivia should be there, and we don't want to see our family divided like this. I couldn't believe it. This was my day, and here they were, making it all about Olivia. Not once did they ask how I felt about it. Not once did they consider that maybe, just maybe, I didn't want the person who hurt me most at my wedding. But it got worse. They didn't just stop at Olivia. Oh no, they decided to come for Chloe, too. And about Chloe, my mom started, hesitating like she knew she was about to cross a line. We know she's been a good friend to you, but we also feel like she's complicated things between you and the family. I just stared at her. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. My dad jumped in, clearly trying to back her up. We think maybe you should reconsider having Chloe in the wedding party. She's been part of the reason you've distanced yourself from us, hasn't she? We're just worried she's been a negative influence. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were actually blaming Chloe, my best friend, the one who had stood by me when my life fell apart, for complicating things. They thought she was the problem? So let me get this straight, I said, my voice trembling with rage. You want me to invite Olivia, the person who betrayed me, but uninvite Chloe, the person who supported me through all of this? That's your solution. My mom had the nerve to look sad, like she was the one being hurt here. We just think it would help things go smoother, she said almost apologetically. You and Olivia could try to rebuild, and Chloe, well, she's not family. That was it. I was done. And you know what? No, Chloe is family. She's been more of a sister to me than Olivia ever has. If you're telling me I have to choose between inviting Olivia or having you at my wedding, then I guess you're not coming. They looked shocked, like they couldn't believe I was actually standing up to them, but I wasn't backing down. I wasn't going to let them guilt-trip me into making my wedding day about Olivia. This is my wedding, I continued, my voice firm, and I'm not going to invite someone who hurt me just to make you happy. If you can't respect that, then maybe you shouldn't be there. My mom started to cry, and my dad just shook his head, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to bend this time. They could either support me or miss the wedding, but I wasn't going to let them control my life anymore. They left without saying much else, and after the door closed, I just stood there, feeling a weird mix of sadness and relief. It hurt, knowing they might not come, but at the same time, I felt free. Free to have the wedding I wanted, with the people who actually cared about me and supported me, and honestly, that's all I needed. After everything that happened with my parents, I wasn't sure what to expect. I sent out the invitations, hoping deep down that maybe they'd change their minds. I kept telling myself not to get my hopes up, but, they're my parents. Even after all the drama, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd come to their senses and show up for me on my wedding day. But as the days passed and the RSVP deadline came and went, I didn't hear a thing. No call, no message, nothing. I tried not to let it get to me, but it's hard not to feel something when your own parents are basically saying, "Oh yeah, we'd rather skip your wedding than support you." As the wedding day got closer, I pushed all that aside. I had too much to focus on last-minute details, the dress, the rehearsal, making sure everything was lined up for the big day. And honestly, the closer I got to the wedding, the more I realized I couldn't spend my time worrying about them. This was my day, and I was determined not to let their absence ruin it. The morning of the wedding was perfect. The weather was exactly what I hoped for, sunny with a light breeze, just warm enough to feel comfortable without melting in the heat. Chloe and the rest of my bridesmaids were there with me, getting ready in the bridal suite, and the energy was light, fun, and stress-free. We laughed, talked about everything except my parents, and just focused on what the day was supposed to be about, celebrating my marriage to Ethan. I won't lie though, when it was time to start the ceremony, there was this little part of me that kept glancing toward the entrance, hoping, just for a second, that I'd see my parents walking in late but still there, but they didn't. That empty feeling came back like a pit in my stomach, but I forced myself to push through it. I wasn't going to let their absence steal my happiness. The ceremony itself was amazing. Walking down the aisle without my dad was tough, but seeing Ethan standing there waiting for me with that goofy, loving smile on his face made everything else fade away. The vows, the laughter, the joy, it all felt so right, so us. I realized then that while I was a little sad about my parents, they weren't the ones who made this day special. Ethan did, our friends did, the people who actually cared about us and our happiness made it special. By the time the reception started, I wasn't even thinking about them anymore. The whole evening was filled with dancing, laughing, and just celebrating with the people who mattered. Chloe gave the most heartfelt speech, making everyone tear up a little, and Ethan's best man told some hilarious stories that had everyone rolling. The food was great, the music was perfect, and the dance floor was packed all night. Honestly, it couldn't have gone better. When Ethan and I finally left, heading off for honeymoon, I felt lighter than I had in months. There was no more stress, no more drama, just the two of us starting this new chapter together. We went on this amazing trip, spending 2 weeks at a beach resort, just relaxing and enjoying the fact that we were married. It was the escape we both needed, a chance to leave everything behind and just focus on each other. But even during the honeymoon, I kept waiting for my phone to buzz, thinking maybe, just maybe, my parents would reach out. Maybe they'd regret not coming. Maybe they'd want to make amends. But nothing, not a single text, not a call, not even a generic congrats message, radio silence. And honestly, by the time we got back, I was over it, done. I had spent so much energy worrying about them, hoping they'd come around, but it was clear they weren't going to. I had given them every chance to be part of my life, to show up for me when it really mattered, and they chose not to. That's on them, not me. I'm not saying it didn't hurt, because it did, but I was done letting their decisions control how I felt. I wasn't going to spend any more time chasing after people who didn't want to be there for me. I had Ethan, I had my friends, I had the people who did show up, and that was enough. So after the honeymoon, I just moved on. I didn't reach out to them, and they didn't reach out to me, and that was fine. I had a new life to focus on, and I wasn't going to let their absence cast a shadow over my happiness. The wedding was everything I hoped it would be, even without them, and as much as it hurt to realize they had chosen not to be part of it, it also showed me something important. I don't need them to validate my life. I've got the people who truly care about me, and that's more than enough. So yeah, I was done with them. For the first time, I felt okay saying that. It wasn't angry or bitter, it was just the truth. They made their choice, and I made mine, and at the end of the day, I was happy with how it all turned out, because even without them, the day was still amazing, and that's all that really mattered.